Welcome, everyone, to our special Thursday evening call, New Health Conversation. We are super excited. We have Dr. Paul Arciero. He is our research scientist, the doctor who basically, along with Peter, is literally the person who created the blueprint that we follow. Before we start, just a couple housekeeping notes. The statements being made this evening, it has not been evaluated by the FDA. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent disease. Dr. Arciero, of course, has had several studies conducted, peer-reviewed studies on this program, and Peter and he will go into great detail about that. And Peter, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you. And welcome, Dr. Paul Arciero.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thanks. Happy New Year, everyone. I promise tonight's going to be well worth your time, and what a way to start off 2024. Hard to believe it is going on. Before I introduce Dr. Arciero, I want to read a statement. Actually, I wrote this more than 13 years ago, and I think it's more pertinent than ever based on what we're going to hear tonight. Once in a great while, something so extraordinary occurs that it changes the world. I believe that moment is now. I have the great honor and privilege to introduce probably the world's greatest nutritional researcher for nearly 40 years, Dr. Paul Arciero. He's double tenured professor at Skidmore College in New York, and most recently he just became a tenured professor at the University of Pittsburgh in charge of the nutrition and sports nutrition department. We're so lucky and honored to have him. I want to just say a couple things. Dr. Arciero has no financial interest in this at all. He's a pure researcher. He wants to get his research out to the world. So welcome, Dr. Arciero. Again, we're so pleased to have you tonight.
Thanks for having me, Peter and Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year 2024. Hope everyone's off to a wonderful start. If you're not, I think this call tonight is going to help you.
All right. Well, listen, I want to use our time because we always run out of time. So I'm going to start right off with really the important question of the day is this. I know we've talked about it before, but let's spend a minute or two on the significance of peer-reviewed human trials. With all the nonsense we're going to talk about later, the white noise, with now U.S. News and World Report came out, the top 5 diets, not one shred of medical evidence behind any of them, except opinions, and the weight loss results and the results in general are completely pitiful. We'll go over that in just a moment. But just for the audience, you've been doing this for 40 years. How significant are peer-reviewed human trials, and why are they so important in us being able to validate why and how this R2M protocol, intermittent nutritional fasting, protein pacing, which you registered, why is that so significant compared to all these other diets? Now the airwaves, you can't turn it on, clatter, white noise.
Peter, what it means to have a research study that's been peer-reviewed and published means that it has met all of the criteria of scientific integrity and validity. So whenever we hear any study news on the radio, on TV, on social media, unless it's been peer-reviewed, it really does not hold the scrutiny. I'll say that again. It does not uphold the scrutiny of the experts around the world in terms of its scientific integrity and validity. So I would just, for everyone, as you move forward in life, when you hear something on social media or on the radio or TV, unless it has that stamp of approval through the peer-reviewed process, it really is research that is not scientifically validated. It's research that has not been scientifically scrutinized and vetted by the experts. So what I'm most excited about to be able to share with all of you tonight is that everything, all of the information that we are presenting to you tonight has been scientifically peer-reviewed and published in some of the leading medical and science journals in the world. And so, just as a starting point of a vote of confidence, know that what you are hearing tonight is based 100% solely on the peer-reviewed research that's been published.
Well, and I want to point out, and you can back me up on this, but there is no other diet nutrition program that's been peer reviewed on their own. The studies that have been done, and we'll talk about some of those later, were done independent of the diet regimens that they were putting on. So this puts this protocol in a class by itself, and also the peer review process literally makes it bulletproof. Is that safe for me to say?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would just say that there have been lots of other diets that have been researched and studied and even published in peer-reviewed journals, right? I mean, I just shared with you today the latest report that came out of the top 24 diets for 2024. And I'm really excited to share that the leading diet, the number one across the board in every category, there was like 12 different categories, was the Mediterranean diet, which is the heart healthy. It's the heart healthy Mediterranean diet. And what I'm really excited to be able to share with everybody today is that in my research that I conduct at my university, we always compare our nutrition program to the heart healthy Mediterranean diet. We want to compare it to the best. And now the Mediterranean diet has loads of peer-reviewed research to support it. So it works. I mean, there's no denying. Mediterranean diet, it works. There's tremendous health benefit. But when it's compared head to head with our nutrition program, the protein pacing and intermittent nutritional fasting, it's actually not even on the same playing field. It would be the equivalent, for example, we're in the NHL, NBA season right now of professional sports, right? So this would be the NBA, NHL playing against the local hockey or basketball team, high school, local.
Well, let me further qualify that so people don't think I misspoke. What I was saying is that the companies or the protocols, they didn't sanction their own peer-reviewed human trials. They were done by Journal of American Medical Association, New England Journal of Medicine, by Nutrients, by these big journals that they kind of ran their own studies. That's what I was trying to get across. I'm not saying they weren't certainly peer-reviewed, but the results were pretty, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So I want to get into that right away. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is, in general, would you agree with my supposition that every diet out there at the end of the day is some form of lowering calories? And what they never talk about, none of these commercials ever tell you that the calorie means nothing to the human body. The body doesn't know how to count a calorie. We don't run on calories. We run on nutrition. And when you lower the calorie and you lower the nutrition, and you taught me this, the body freaks out and it goes and seeks the nutrition in the densest parts of the body, which is our organs, like our brain, our kidney, our liver, our heart, and first our muscles. It literally converts the muscles into carbohydrates. And even that is not enough. Then the body has to slow down metabolism. That's why the weight loss slows down to a crawl on a diet, or you come off the diet and you gain everything back. Is that a good way to explain that?
It definitely is a good way to explain it. I can make it maybe presented in a different way. I can start by saying
sure
that
you can.
I can start by saying that all diets work. All diets help you lose weight. That's not a mystery. We know that we can lose weight literally, and I don't say this tongue in cheek and with any kidding. We can lose weight pretty much eating anything. We can lose weight eating Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's. We can lose weight eating M&M's candy bars and Twinkies and Snickerdoodles, whatever it is. You can lose weight following a diet, eating literally everything. We've done the research. There have been scientists who have proven that you can lose weight by lowering the calories, eating anything you want, as long as you lower the calories. So losing weight can be achieved in an exponential, infinite number of different ways. That's not a challenge for many people at all, although sometimes staying on that lower calorie intake is a challenge. But here's what we're really talking about. It's the quality of the body composition that you lose when you follow these diets. And it's very, very well known and very well established through literally, thousands of scientific studies that have been published that in losing weight following all these various different types of diets, you're losing a significant portion of your body mass that you don't want to lose, and that's your lean body mass, we call it, the LBM, your lean body mass, which is comprised primarily of your muscle, your metabolically active muscle tissue. So, Peter, the real distinguishing feature and difference between diets and then following a healthy, nutritious eating program, such as the protein pacing and intermittent nutritional fasting, is the vast difference of the body composition that will be lost when you follow those two different eating strategies. So diets lose weight, all of them work, doesn't matter which one it is. So, choose anyone that you want to lose weight. The problem and the risk is that you will be losing your body mass that you do not want to ever lose, and that's your lean, healthy skeletal muscle mass and vital organ mass. Because once you begin to lose that, you begin to jeopardize lowering your metabolism and compromising your health. Because that's what establishes our metabolism and our vital organs and our bone mineral density and our ability to ambulate and walk and move our bodies. So that's the big danger. That is the biggest danger, alongside many of the other health conditions that result from people losing weight inappropriately or in the wrong fashion through dieting. So yeah, we're talking about opposite ends of the spectrum. So diets are on one end, which is, I always associate diets with disease. And so those two words are very similar to each other, diet, disease. So if you go on a diet, you will become more diseased. Whereas if you follow this high quality, high nutrient dense nutrition plan that I've been studying for 38 years and have compared it against the best that's available to us right now. One example is the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet. I've also compared my research to the DASH diet. You will be providing optimal health improvement. So there's really not even, a comparison. It's not even on the same playing field. So I think that's a great starting point for everybody, that we're talking about two very vastly different ways of affecting the body. One is a disease progression. The other one is optimal health.
Well, to back that up, and I think maybe last time I mentioned a new study in nutrients, where they looked at low calorie, low carb diets, and they said unequivocally that the majority of the weight loss was lean muscle. But frightening, it also, they said, leads to osteoporosis, which backs up what you're saying about leading to disease. So the thing is, yes, you taught me this, you can lose weight on any diet, but it's unhealthy weight loss. Because you said before brilliantly about the fact that any diet, the only thing they focus on is losing weight and disregard the impact overall on health. Am I correct?
Yeah, for sure. Because one of the things you're trying to correct when you adopt a healthy lifestyle, such as a change in your nutrient intake, is to prevent the number one disease epidemic that we have worldwide, and that's called metabolic syndrome, metabolic dysfunction. And so when you have metabolic dysfunction, which is characterized by high blood sugar, high insulin levels, abdominal obesity, you have a larger waist girth. When you have high blood pressure, high blood lipids, that's metabolic dysfunction. It's called metabolic syndrome. It's a syndrome or a constellation of a number of different ill effects that a person is experiencing. And it's rampant. It's epidemic. We're having it now present itself in young boys and girls that are still in development, right? They're 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old boys and girls that are experiencing metabolic dysfunction, metabolic syndrome. So no one's immune to it. And it's not just simply for people that succumb to this as they get older. That's a misconception. We are experiencing metabolic dysfunction and metabolic syndrome in younger and younger children. So I think that's what has to be expressed. Now, are you more at risk of it getting into your 20s and 30s and 40s and beyond? 100%. The sad news is that it's occurring now in much, much younger children. So whenever that happens, you need to introduce as quickly as possible a healthy lifestyle. Medication's not going to save the day. It's going to present itself with a continuation of more and more side effects, as we already know. And so anybody that believes that the traditional pharmacological medical intervention is the solution is gravely wrong. We know that exacerbates the problem. It simply puts a Band-Aid on the problem that soon bubbles up and becomes much worse than what it was at the beginning. So we need to intervene with healthy lifestyle. There's no question, unequivocally, we can talk about this with physicians on the call. Hopefully more and more begin to join, but they well know themselves that once you begin to introduce medication into lifestyle-related diseases, it's a death wish. It's going to present itself in a further and further exacerbation of problems and a increasing of these problems. So lifestyle is the solution, and high quality nutrient density is the primary solution to this problem.
Well, I want to back up what you're saying with, listen, everyone, I'm not trying to scare you to death. I'm trying to scare you to life. These are the statistics. Okay. CDC, again, metabolic syndrome. They estimate 9 out of 10 Americans are metabolic unhealthy with 3 of those 5 factors that he talked about: weight, blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides. Okay. But it goes worse than that. They estimate 45% of the adult population in the United States has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And yet in 1975, there were no cases of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. 1 in 3 adults are pre-diabetic. I mean, this thing is completely out of control. And so what are we doing? We're doing the same thing. I call it, from 550 years ago, the smartest people in the world all believe one thing. And what was that? That the world is flat. All these people coming on TV and telling you, cut your calories, low carbs, count this, all these schemes, none of them work in the long run. So now what I want to do, I want to get into the actual results in the studies you did that will highlight what we're talking about. Not your opinion, by the way. You're not giving us your opinion. You're giving the scientific data. And you even told me when you ran these numbers, and you've been running blood and stool and urine analysis for years and years on diets, et cetera, that you guys had to run the numbers again because you were so shocked at the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up, correct? Isn't that what happened?
No, it's exactly what happened. And this is the fun part for all of us right now as we get into the solution. What is it that you can take away from this call and begin to enact and incorporate into your daily routine in a very easy, administered way? I mean, these things are not complicated. They're actually very, very simple. To make massive, I mean, when I say massive, it's massive health improvement. Just as an example, as we just described to you, metabolic syndrome is characterized first and foremost by an increased waist circumference, a girth around your waist. So where you fit your belt and your pants that you buckle or button or zip, that in our research, we show beyond a 33% reduction in the visceral fat that's around your midsection, which translates into massive reductions in your waist circumference. I've done the comparisons of the leading. I mean, we're talking about the leading what we have available currently in terms of established scientific programs to demonstrate an improvement in metabolic syndrome, and waist circumference is one of them. And the changes that occur are phenomenal. I mean, they're significant, up to 5-8 inches. I know that sounds bizarre, but that's how much these individuals are losing around their waist circumference, and 33% reduction of fat that's around the visceral organs. That's fat that we don't want to have. Glucose can drop by more than 10%. So, for example, if somebody's starting at a borderline high blood sugar, glucose and sugar are the same thing here we're talking about. Glucose is the scientific word, but it's blood sugar. They have reductions of 10%. So if they're starting at 100 milligrams, that's the unit that's used, milligrams per deciliter, they have reductions of 10 points off of their glucose. So they're back down at a level of 90. And that reduction brings them from at risk to a normal level with no medication introduced at all. It gets even more exciting when we look at the hormone that's responsible for taking blood sugar or sugar out of the blood. That's the hormone insulin. Insulin is what is necessary in order to pull the sugar from the blood out of the blood and put it into the cells. So you don't want to have a real high insulin. That means the body's not working properly. And we demonstrate that the insulin level drops by 41%. 41%. Those numbers are just yeah, almost unbelievable, but they're real. So
Well, explain. It's important. I want everyone to understand. They put you on medication. They give you more insulin. So yeah, your
yeah,
blood sugar goes down, but your insulin's going up. What you found in the study was an inverse. Not only did blood sugar came down, but insulin. You'd never seen that before. I want everyone to understand how powerful that is.
yeah. Normally, in order to get the blood sugar down, you have to administer higher levels of insulin. That's why people who are experiencing metabolic syndrome, which is characterized by type 2 diabetes, we call it sugar intolerance, glucose intolerance, they are given medications to increase the amount of insulin in the blood. We found the opposite. We found that as the insulin level plummeted 41%, so did the glucose. And that means that your insulin was working extremely efficient, unlike would ever happen by giving a person a drug to help increase their insulin into the blood. So we're talking about, again, two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of health improvement. When you go on medication, the system usually begins to decline and fail, particularly with lifestyle-related conditions. That's a well-known fact. But
I want to briefly go through the other numbers, and you can just back it up.
Sure.
I mean, this is insane. Like you just talked about the blood sugar and the insulin. Actually, you scooped me because I only had it at 4%. Now you're telling me it's 41, so I look like I didn't know what I was talking about.
41.
So, okay, cholesterol down 15%, LDL down 13%, triglycerides 24%, hunger down 41%. Hunger. I mean, have you ever seen anything like this on all the diets you've ever analyzed in almost 40 years? I mean, this is insane because basically the metabolic syndrome you talked about, not one factor or two factors or three factors went down. All five factors went down, let alone this waist circumference. And one of the things you taught me, as the waist expands, your brain actually shrinks. That's why that girth and the weight is so damaging to us, and why all of you listen. If you don't measure, if you just weigh yourself and you don't measure, you're literally cheating yourself on the results that this is producing. Do you agree with that, Dr. Arciero?
Absolutely. Yes, yeah, for sure. And by the way, we talked about the visceral fat reductions, but the fat, the total body fat went down 21 pounds in some of our research that we conducted. 21 pounds. I mean, just yeah, incredible findings. Blood pressure, I don't know if you mentioned that one yet, but that was another. Yeah. So the blood pressure dropping 10 points. For those people that are on blood pressure lowering medication, having a reduction of 10 points of either of those numbers, your systolic or diastolic blood pressure, is pretty magnificent. And again, all without medication. So yeah, the results were really eye-opening and
you forgot
compelling.
a very important thing. 80% women, 20% men.
Yes.
No one allowed to exercise. So those numbers are extraordinary when you consider that you didn't even let them exercise, right?
That's correct. And one of the things that we, didn't, I don't know if you highlighted this or not in those numbers that you were presenting, but, we want to try to preserve our metabolically active lean mass, our muscle mass. We had increases of 6 to 9% increase in this proportion of lean body mass. I mean, think about that. That was the most striking difference that we found in these studies compared to any other scientific study, because it's reported across the board that you lose about 35 to 40% or more of your lean mass when you
Yep.
go on a weight reducing diet. So when you
Yep.
go on a diet that has you losing weight, you lose 35 to 40% or more of your lean metabolically active muscle mass. Here, we had an increase of 6 to 9% of the proportion of your lean body mass. So is this entirely different and unique and novel compared to anything else that's been shown before this point? Yes, 100% it is. And it's because of just a couple of key features that I think hopefully we're going to get into next, because I hope you're all at the edge of your seat figuring out what is this.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do that in a minute. But let me back up again. I always like, you know me, I don't believe Peter Greenlaw. I'm not the expert, but I became an expert on the experts like you and et cetera. But let's just go over some of the diet studies that are out there. Everyone I've seen, muscle mass was, they maybe put it on like page 15, buried in there, that, well, a substantial amount of the weight loss was lean muscle, which we know. But let's kind of go through just a few of these. For example, in a Journal of the American Medical Association study, which was 12 months, it was a meta-analysis. Meta-analysis means it was a compilation, in this case, of 27 different studies over 7,000 people. And they named every major diet by name, from Cornish to keto, paleo, Mediterranean, blood type, zone diet, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem across the board. Average weight loss in a year was 16 pounds. I mean, in your studies, people lost on average 16 pounds in a month, but it goes on. And then there was a time-restricted eating study that was done, actually by the Annals of American Medical Association, 12 months. And you actually turned me onto that study. In 12 months, the weight loss was 10 pounds. Then there was another study done in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they pointed out that the majority of the weight was definitely from lean muscle. 12 months, they compared, again, time-restricted eating, which is intermittent fasting, which this is not, and just caloric restriction. The intermittent nutrition, the intermittent fasting was about 14 pounds in a year, where just lowering calories was 17.6. But again, the majority a big portion of the weight was lean muscle mass, which is not what you want to, talk about. Remember, these are not anecdotes. These are from peer-reviewed studies that were done independently of all these other diets, in comparison to what Dr. Arciero is talking about. We're in a different zip code. We're in a different planet. We left Earth orbit in terms of trying to compare the results that we have scientific evidence to prove, where the other people, for the most part, when they do expose their information, it really pales in comparison. Now, we're going to talk about it in a couple moments. The Mediterranean diet. There was a study done, 8 months on the Mediterranean diet, 10.2 pounds in 8 months. So, and one last thing, there was a big study done on Wegovy. You all know right now the big rage is on these shots, these drugs. And I want Dr. Arciero to touch on that in just a moment. New England Journal of Medicine, 68 weeks. Let me repeat that. 68 weeks. The average weight loss in 68 weeks was 36 pounds. Let that sink in for a minute. Are you kidding me? We've often said, just give us 4 days. Because in many cases, people even on this call have lost as much weight in 4 days as 8 weeks of any of these diets. But it's the healthy, right kind of weight. That's what you need to know. And again, I'm glad that he's pointed this out. I harp on it over and over. It's almost like doing this weight loss is like a throw-in. But you can see the health benefits are unbelievable. And again, if you don't measure, you're not knowing what an impact this is really having. Yeah, it has an impact on the number on the scale, but that's it. So, did we lose talk? Oh, there he is.
No, I'm here.
So,
Yeah.
So really, what I want to talk about now is, let's just talk about, why does this thing work so unbelievably well?
Well, for lots of really important reasons. Gosh, if I could share my screen, I'd love to be able to, but if not, no worries. I'd have to be made one of
Bob, can you do that? Can you make him a host?
If not, no big deal. So why does it work? Well, I can tell you this with 100% certainty, Peter. Why it works is because it's providing the highest quality nourishment, the highest quality nutrition that our bodies can absorb and utilize, digest, process. It's activating a primary pathway called protein synthesis. And that's a technical scientific term for allowing the body to replace and replenish and rejuvenate tissue that we have in our body. And that has to take place on a daily basis because many of our tissues turn over in some cases very, very rapidly. We have, of course, red blood cells, but we have other tissues that have a fairly fast turnover, sometimes within minutes, many times within hours. So it's not like our muscles that we have today are going to be the same ones that we're going to have in, a year. Sometimes muscle can take a little bit longer to turn over, but these things are constantly turning over, these body structures that we have. Bones, right? Everyone thinks that bones are so hard and stable and last us an entire lifetime. And we know that that's just simply not the case. We have a high turnover even of our bone every 3 to 6 months. So we need a system, we need a pathway of our body to constantly pay attention to what we call turnover, protein turnover, the protein that's being broken down to the protein that is being rebuilt and rejuvenated. And so that's the issue that we have at hand right now. And protein synthesis is critical. When you go on a diet, you are in a heightened state of protein degradation. Those are the two processes, breaking down and then rebuilding, replacing and rebuilding. And so it's not as though you're going to develop these big bulking muscles and bones and things like that. No, that's not how the body operates. The body is more in tune with what it needs to do to help safeguard against loss. And so it's going to do its best job to just get back to a replacement. As we get older, though, that degradation, that breakdown of tissues, body tissues, muscle, bone, and vital organs, that occurs at a faster rate. It's harder to replace and rebuild many of those tissues. So here's the process, and here's what we know. When you consume the highest quality protein of all of the 9 essential amino acids and 11 non-essential, your body has a much better capability of replacing that which has been broken down. And again, that's happening often. If you're on a weight loss, it's happening at an accelerated rate. That's why so many people lose muscle mass when they go on a diet. When you're getting older, above the age of 35, I know that sounds not very old, but that's when it kicks in at about 35. At 35 years old is what the research shows and supports very strongly. Your body begins to break down at a faster rate of building up. And so beginning at that, everyone thinks, oh, I don't have to worry about increasing my protein intake until I'm in my 50s or 60s. That's, again, just a fallacy. That's a made-up myth. You should be increasing your protein intake beginning at the age of 35, men and women. If you're somebody who's leading an active lifestyle, you have to take up even more. So the strategy is something called protein pacing. It's very well established. I encourage all of you to go and seek out the articles that I've written on protein pacing. It's what I've created, but it allows for an easy method. And here's what it is. It's a minimum of 3, preferably 4. That's the ideal number of high quality protein servings throughout the day. Absolutely critical. It's every 4 hours, roughly. If you're doing a 3 meal a day process of protein pacing, which again is not the ideal, but if it's a minimum that you can get in, it would look something like this: having your first meal at 8 in the morning, your next one at 1, and your final one at 6. Again, not an ideal, but for those that can only fit in 3 meals, that's what you want to do. 4 is even better. That would be 8 o'clock would be your first one, noon, 4, and 8. So 8 a.m., 12 noon, 4 p.m., and 8 p.m. And you can modify.
And that's what we've been teaching people, that you taught us. There's no doubt about that at all.
Yeah.
But I think also people just explain sarcopenia, which is really the outcome of what you're talking about. And also, I think when people get older, they're thin, they go, well, I don't need to lose weight. They don't get this. It's not a weight loss program. Can you just clear up that mystery for me?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely not a weight loss program. And I'm just going to share my screen here with you so that you can all see this, because I think this will be extremely revealing to you. But what this is showing you is the latest and greatest according to the research that's been conducted. And as you see here on this bigger picture, this is the latest study that was in the New England Journal of Medicine. This was published, in 2021, New England Journal of Medicine, very, very well cited. Everyone cites it. And it's using the GLP-1, right? The Wegovy and Ozempic. So they were using the GLP-1 called liraglutide. And what I want to point your attention to is very clearly where this arrow is pointing, and that's in the change in the person's fat mass and lean mass. So while they lost a lot of weight, 25 pounds in this, or 27 pounds, 27, 28 pounds, look at what they lost. I mean, this is what is so alarming. People think that these GLP-1 agonists, Ozempic and Wegovy, and all the different variations of these GLP-1 agonists are the panacea. They are the answer to healthy weight loss. Let's go on a GLP-1. I want to go get my Ozempic and Wegovy. Well, just be prepared. Because if you do decide to go down that path, you're going to lose massive. I mean, when I say massive, that's an understatement. You're losing a huge percentage of your lean muscle mass. So in this case, they lost the 27 pounds. 16 was fat mass. Okay, that's decent. And 11 pounds was lean body mass. That's despicable. I mean, literally, it's despicable that we are placing all of this heightened buzz around GLP-1 agonists, given the massive amount of lean body mass. But here's something even more disturbing and alarming. I showed you this on the right side. It shows heart rate. Look at the change in heart rate. You have an increase in a person's resting heart rate. That's never good. That's never good because it's showing that your body is in a heightened state of stress. And so you have this heightened state of stress. So Peter just used the word sarcopenia, and sarcopenia is the loss of muscle mass. So you're in a massive, massive state of sarcopenia. At the same time, your body's undergoing enormous nervous system stress. When your resting heart rate goes up, it's never good. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. When you go on a GLP-1 agonist, not only are you losing the most vital, valuable, critical, important body composition mass, your lean muscle mass, which is terrible, but you're also increasing your nervous system stress by your heart rate. Now, let's look at that in comparison to our study, which I think is really super exciting. Here, in our participants, following this for 8 to 12 weeks, look at this, 25 pounds. And I'm sorry, what was the amount that they lost in the liraglutide study that everyone has been getting so hysterical?
36 pounds in 68 weeks. 68
yeah,
weeks.
27 pounds in the 12-week time. It's actually a little bit more than that. It was like, I think it was a 6-month that they showed that. Let me just go up there and verify it because, yeah, they show it in this figure right here. I show it. So in 8, yeah, and then by the time they reached to that point, so it was, yeah, 6 weeks or so. But this was over a full year too. Yeah, this was showing in 52 weeks. But it doesn't matter. It was a long time that they lost very little weight. And if you look at our data, in 8 to 12 weeks, you're losing basically the same amount of weight, and you're losing nearly all of it with body fat mass, and you are preserving. Oh, here I wrote the stats in down at the bottom. So 28, 29 pounds. Some of it was water, which is why they don't add up to 16 and 11. It's 27 pounds. So they lost about 2 pounds of water. The bottom line is it's a massive difference in terms of the results, as you just saw. So yeah, you don't want to lose muscle mass. That's called sarcopenia. You don't want to lose bone mineral density. That's called osteoporosis or osteopenia. But those two things happen at a very, very high rate. So how do we prevent it? We prevent it by following protein pacing, consuming the highest quality nutrition that your body can utilize and absorb and benefit by transitioning from protein breakdown into protein replacement of the body structures. And then hopefully in some cases, for some people, an actual increase in protein synthesis. That's what we want to achieve. And there's been nothing more effective than by following the protein pacing. For people that want to also benefit Oh, excuse me. I'm drinking my dinner. I'm so embarrassed, but this is my version. This is I was at work for 11 hours today. So when I got home, my son had made me a shake. So it's got some extra nourishment, but it's got the high quality, the highest quality protein in here, along with some fruit and some avocado. So I live it, and hopefully all of you will too as well, because there's absolutely nothing more nourishing for our overall health, and our
Well,
we haven't even talked about the brain health. One area of research that I do extensively is brain health and cognition. I do a lot of research with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias because that's a real issue. And Peter, you kind of alluded to it, that once we begin to compromise our body's muscle mass, it has a direct impact with the health of our brain. Because once you start to lose your muscle mass, your lean body mass, that means you're having an encroachment or an increase in the amount of fat mass and proportionally of your body. And much of that fat gets deposited around your midsection. And there's a direct correlation between an increase in your waist circumference and a decrease in your brain health and your cognition. They get lowered. So all of these things interact. And the reason is because our fat tissue, particularly around our visceral region, our belly region, and our muscles, they are hormonal secreting. We call those endocrine organs. They actually secrete substances that interact with our central nervous system. So when we have an increase in fat mass around our midsection, it secretes hormones that travel in our blood and enter into our brain and begin to degrade the health of our brain. Same thing with our muscles. When we activate our muscles, they secrete hormones into our blood that travel to the brain and increase what's called neurogenesis or nerve development. So one is decreasing the production of new nerves. It's called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. That's an increase in fat mass that decreases that process. And then an increase of healthy lean muscle mass will increase that process of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. So one decreases it, one increases it, and it's obvious.
and you definitely saw increase in cognition in the studies. You've seen that. I mean, it's not up for debate, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. We haven't directly measured cognition. That's using specific neurocognitive tests, and we show significant improvement in the psychological mood state. Now, in my other research that I do with some of these other principles that I'm talking about, protein pacing and some of the exercise routines that I do, we have a documented increase in cognition as well as the hormones, which is called brain-derived neurotropic factor, that stimulates neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. So, yeah, we're really excited in the direction that this is heading, but specific to the program that we're talking about here with protein pacing and
Intermittent
nutritional fasting, the benefits to that are abundant.
Well, you taught me a new term that I think will perk everyone up, and that is normal weight obesity, more specifically visceral obesity. Can you touch on that for a moment? Because obviously we have athletes, we have people that are thin, but this is no longer the measurement of health anymore, of being thin, according to what they're now saying. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We used to think that as long as you're at normal weight and you meet the metropolitan life insurance charts of height and weight, you're good. And unfortunately, nothing is further from the truth, right? Because you can be normal weight and actually underweight and be obese. I know that doesn't sound right, but it's absolutely true. I know this because I measure this routinely in my lab. So we have people that come in all the time that when we put them on the scale, by all indications of their body weight and height, they are normal weight and should therefore be extremely healthy. Nah, that's not the case. When we get them onto our sophisticated laboratory equipment and we actually measure their body composition, that's their amount of bone mineral density, their lean body mass, their body water, we show just the opposite. These are people that are of normal weight, but they have an excess accumulation around their midsection vital organs, even without sometimes having an increase in their waist circumference. But they're generally obese. They're not overweight, They're normal weight and sometimes underweight, but they are classified as obese because the majority of their body weight, or not even sometimes the majority, they have just high levels of fat mass. Yep.
Well, there's a
So
couple
this
more.
is for every. So Peter, to your point,
It's for everybody.
we're not just talking about people that are visibly carrying extra weight around their midsection or visibly having extra body fat located throughout their body. It's important for those people, absolutely, but this is important for everybody, all literally walks of life, because no one or less and less are people immune now to carrying around excess body fat, even if they weigh a normal weight or even if they don't have an excess accumulation around their midsection, because you can't see this hidden fat that's inside the body around the visceral organs. So yeah, it's an epidemic, it's a pandemic. We have to intervene, and fortunately, we have the solution with protein pacing and intermittent nutritional fasting.
Well, three other points that I want to make or want you to elucidate, and that is this. Number one, the reason that visceral fat is so darn hard to lose, that is the place where the body is storing the toxins that I've written a lot about that. But you also have proven that you're able to this is also removing toxins from the body, which is contributing to that shrinkage in the visceral fat. Can you touch on that for just a second?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the studies that I was interested in conducting was looking at the effectiveness of protein pacing and intermittent nutritional fasting in people that needed to lose weight because they were at risk of metabolic syndrome. They were carrying one or more of these risk factors for metabolic syndrome. But I wanted to conduct this study with an eye toward what was happening when this visceral fat, the fat around the midsection, was being mobilized and released, or what we refer to as being burned, because these toxins are very lipophilic. Philic is Latin for love. So the toxins love to be stored in body fat. They have an attraction for body fat, and especially they have an attraction for visceral fat. And what we found was this, which was fascinating. When they lost this mass, I showed you the figure, they lost 21 pounds of body fat, 33% of that was around their visceral organs. They lost the equivalent of on average, these 40 men and women, on average, lost the size of a basketball around their midsection, a basketball. As they lost that weight, the release of those toxins that were stored because they loved being housed there, that was their home, that they were releasing those toxins into the blood. Now, in a normal state of toxin appearance into the blood, you would have a consequential increase in what's called cellular oxidative stress damage. You'd have cellular damage. We know that. When we expose our body to toxins, it has a downstream effect of increasing the cellular damage inside of our body. We showed a 33% reduction in this cellular damage. I have a slide that shows it, and it's compelling because when you can document these changes, I'm just going to throw this up real quick so that everyone can see it, because it's definitely worth showing. So as you see here, yeah, so here it is.
Wow.
We showed a 33% increase in the toxin release, and it was a 25. Sorry, I think I might have said 30%. It was a 25, not much difference, to be honest with you. That's a quarter of a reduction in the cellular stress that was occurring in the body. So that means that as these toxins were being released from their storage home, that's your visceral fat, instead of causing more damage to the rest of the body, it actually reduced damage. Now, why could that be? How could that be? Well, here's why. Because at the same time, if you look at this other third figure here on the far right, they had a 5%, these individuals had a 5% increase in their antioxidant defense system. So this was the scavengers, the armed police that we release into our body to help defend against foreign toxic substances, harmful substances. At the same time that these toxins were being released and the damage was being reduced, the defense system was going up significantly. You can't paint a better story than that. I mean, literally, you can't. Michelangelo could not have done a better job of painting this. And so when these data came out, this is what Peter was referring to at the beginning of the call tonight. This is where I really had to scratch my head and say, hey, can you guys go back and re-look at this? Because there's just no way we can have this massive of an increase in toxins, which are harmful to the body. At the same time, the body is showing a reduction in damage and cellular stress from these toxins, and the defense systems that are protecting our body has gone up. That just, it doesn't happen. And so these findings were so compelling and so novel, and the research was just incredible. So the great news for all of you is that not only are all of these other magnificent, fabulous health changes occurring when you are following this, but the body at a cellular level, I mean, at a cellular health level, is improving to a drastic degree. Now, we haven't even talked about this all happened without any exercise. So exercise, we know, is so beneficial to us. We did not allow them to exercise. So these changes occurred through just their change in nourishing their body. There was no change in exercise. In fact, when we've conducted these studies and compared it to the heart-healthy Mediterranean diet, we've showed that they actually, this protein pacing intermittent nutritional fasting group exercised a little bit less. Well, I shouldn't say exercise because they weren't exercising, but they moved their body, their physical activity. We measured their physical activity using what's called an accelerometer. And we all, have something like that on our wrist if you wear a Apple Health Watch or a Garmin or some other device. We showed that they actually moved less and had these benefits. More importantly, they were actually eating a little bit more food. Now, that doesn't make any sense, right? They're eating more food, moving less, and they lost twice as much weight, twice as much body fat, and they had just profound improvements in all these markers.
Talk about your other study about the microbiome, because what we're really talking about here now is a quality of life system with all these crazy other things going on. So I think that's really important. We've never talked about that before. So I think that microbiome study is really something significant.
Yeah, let's finish up with that. And I'm glad you brought it up because the microbiome is our second brain. And I don't say that lightly. What that means is that the conduction pathway, the communication pathway between our brain and our gut is direct. It's a hotline. It's literally a hotline. But most of what we experience in our brain is experienced in our gut. Most of what we experience in our gut is felt in our brain. So they work one in one. They almost work simultaneously with each other. And that's because of the blood supply, the nerve supply, and the direct line of communication between the two. So anytime we have a health improvement in our gut, we have a health improvement in our brain. If our gut is dysfunctional, dysbiosis, we call it, if our gut is in dysbiosis, our brain is usually murky. It's usually not thinking clearly. It's usually not functioning properly, optimally. So what we're finding now is that if we can intervene in a lifestyle paradigm by improving our gut, it'll make a direct line of benefit to our brain. And that's absolutely true. And I'm really excited. I can't share all of the news because it's still in the process of coming out for publication. But I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be able to come back on and I'll be able to share with you in really definitive terms. But I can just say this, that when you follow protein pacing and intermittent nutritional fasting, you actually undergo, for the first time, by the way, this has been proven by us, my research team and our study, using this protein pacing intermittent nutritional fasting, you can actually remodel your gut microbiome. I mean, just to be able to say that is exciting. But you absolutely do. I mean, think about, when you remodel a bathroom or a kitchen, right? You can take a lousy looking bathroom and a lousy, disgusting looking kitchen and transform it into a beautiful state of the art, model for all others to replicate. Well, that's essentially what we have proven with the protein pacing intermittent nutritional fasting, that we can actually remodel a very dysbiosis gut that's not working very well into a highly functioning, optimally healthy gut microbiome. That's massive. And we did it in as little as 8 weeks. And we did it at the family level. I don't know if many of you are aware that we have, various different levels of species and genes and different inhabitants throughout our body. The family level is one that's extremely difficult to change. I don't know if many of you remember back in middle school, King Philip came over for green spaghetti, right? So it talks about the various levels, and we have documentation that we were able to change it at the family level, which is really profound.
Well, let's close on a really important point. And this is the question that I get from people that makes me crazy in all the lectures I've done. When they come up and say, do I have to do this the rest of my life? Please emphasize how important, especially as we get older, that going on maintenance is something as simple as 1 or 2 shakes a day really makes a huge difference. And you have data on that as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have data now on a case study that's over 2 years. It's actually at 3. But yeah, no, you wouldn't want to do this only for the short term. I would just say that you'll have tremendous health improvement in the short term. We're talking, 2, 3, 6 months, 12 months even. I consider that in some cases. But that's not really why we want to emphasize you staying on this forever. I mean, why would you want to go off of it? So there's no compelling reason whatsoever to stop doing this. And absolutely, I mean, what would be the alternative? Well, the alternative would be to return back to, the unhealthy state or the less than healthy state that you were at before you started. So yeah, this is the highest quality nutrition you can fuel your body with. Why? I guess it's never made sense to me. Why would you do anything otherwise than to stay on the 1 or 2 shake a day? So I started listen, I had an extremely busy day today, as many of you, as I know, had as yourselves. I really literally came in 5 minutes before this call tonight. I left my house this morning at 8:30 with one of my protein pacing shakes. And here I returned at 8 o'clock tonight with the other one. So the most important thing that you can do, and I don't think there's no debate, at least from a scientific standpoint, based on my research and many others, is to bookend these 2 high quality, highest quality nutrition feedings. So first one in the morning and the last one that you do at night. There's really nothing better. So yeah, you would never want to stop.
Well, let me close with this, what I started with. Once in a great while, something so extraordinary occurs that it changes the world. Now, do you all believe that that statement is true? You've witnessed something. We should be all so grateful to Dr. Arciero for almost 40 years of research to keep looking for the silver bullet. And darn it, he found it, but he has the medical proof to back it up. That nobody else has ever seen results like this. So is that a good way to close it out, Dr. Arciero?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm so grateful that you had me on, and I'm so excited for all of you. What better way to start 2024? This is this is the top shelf lifestyle. So excited for all of you. Thanks for having me.
Bob, you want to say anything in closing?
Well, Dr. Arciero, that was extraordinary. Thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. Yes, 2024 will be an exciting year, and it's up to us to get the word out. I literally feel like we're at a rebirth point, literally a restart with our company, and literally with the changes and impact that we can make on our health, overall health. I mean, I can't hardly put it into define it in numbers. I mean, I know, Peter, you talked about it, but metabolic syndrome collectively impacts our health system by at least $1 trillion a year. And we have something that can naturally impact that in a very positive way. And there's nothing else out there quite like it. So it's incumbent upon all of us to share our stories to share Dr. Arciero's research and a call like tonight. It will be recorded, so please share it far and wide. And once again, Dr. Paul Arciero, thank you so much. We hope to have you back on real soon again with the microbiome data. And let's make this a great year. We are, as a group, are going to be doing a group nutritional fast cleanse, right? On the 15th of January. So get ready. All of us kind of need a new reset at the beginning of the year. And we're planning for that. So without further ado, thank you, Dr. Arciero.
I'll join you. Yeah.
Now that'll be fun, and definitely get a good start of the year. And thank you for your time, obviously your knowledge, and especially for the investment you've made in the research. That's quite incredible.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Peter. My pleasure. Great seeing everybody. Thanks for having me on, and I'm always here to help support you.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
You bet.
Bye.
Night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.